Welcome to Beyond the Pod, presented by SodaStick.com.
Brunette, he moves, Brunette back in, he scores! Minnesota has upset the Colorado Avalanche! Andrew Brunette, the game-winning goal!
Here are your hosts, the second greatest scorer in Gopher hockey history, Pat Micheletti, and the second greatest hockey analyst on this podcast, Brandon Mileski.
All right, welcome to a live edition of Beyond the Pod, a very rare live episode of Beyond the Pod brought to you by SodaStick.com. I'm Brandon Mileski, Pat Micheletti with the really bad lighting. If you are watching on YouTube.
Oh, sorry, is that better?
Oh, that's okay.
All right.
I just get jealous that your skin always looks so much darker than mine. I look very pale next to you.
I'm Italian. You're not.
Yeah, I'm well aware.
Okay.
This is a live edition tonight. So for we have people that are watching live. You can comment. You can ask questions. I will be able to see them. And maybe we can get to a couple. And our guest tonight is Minnesota Wild Forward Marcus Foligno. Marcus, really appreciate you joining us for our live episode tonight. What is the what's kind of the feeling on the eve of training camp? Your emotions. Obviously, you're a guy that's pretty established. You know you're going to make the team, but what kind of emotions are you feeling knowing the season's about to begin?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It's always the same emotions. I mean, it's we're excited emotions, kind of nervous. It's always that. I think that's what's great about the start of the season, start of training camp. We had our little bit of our orientation today, meeting with all the brass and getting to see all the other guys that are, prospects and draft picks and guys down in Iowa that we know, obviously due to COVID, we really haven't seen in a long time. So it's nice. There's a certain energy in the room right now, and it's a good feeling. So I think everyone's got that first day jitters going on tomorrow, and it might be my 11th season, but I think every start of the year it feels like my first.
Wow. What, okay, you're in your 11th season. What is a guy, for a fan out there who's watching and they know Marcus Foligno is going to be in the lineup, know the type of player he is, what do you do in training camp to get yourself ready? Is there anything in particular? I know it's a team and, you're trying to get the whole team ready, but from an individual standpoint, what do you want to accomplish in training camp?
Yeah, from a team standpoint, I just try to lead by example by just letting the work ethic kind of show out there. I think that's the biggest thing too for myself. I just want to get feeling really good when it comes to conditioning, come to my legs, come to my skating, and just, and then you also think about positioning. I mean, we're not going crazy in practices yet because we're playing with our teammates, but
yeah,
I think for me, it's more of just doing the little things right. Trying to get back and then doing the right habits and doing the little small things that can make a big difference in games. So, whether it's just smart things in my D zone, understanding our structure and getting the systems down pat for myself. I think for me, it's always going to be there. And then there's also stuff that I do have a checklist in my head going in. I want to shoot more in practice. I want to get that stuff going because I like to have a little bit more of a shot mentality this year. And I've worked on it this summer a little bit more. And so those are things that I try to do. I want to really work on my shot in practice. So maybe Cam Talbot might be getting ready for that. And that's pretty much my itinerary for myself. Whether it's I always know that my work ethic's going to be there, but just to kind of lead on the ice and make sure I'm ready to go for preseason and obviously day one of the regular season.
Well, the last two seasons, even though they were both COVID-shortened seasons, you had career highs in points, even in a much smaller sample size of games. So what's been the difference with you these last two games? You've obviously always been a good checking winger, a guy who can play defensively, a guy who can kill penalties and bring the physical aspect. What's happened a little bit the last 2 years where you've gotten a little bit of a scoring touch?
Yeah, I've worked on a little bit of shooting, and I think actually I went back home after the first kind of before COVID hit. That year was a better year for me statistically wise, but I think the confidence I have with with Greenway and Eriksson Ek, I think that was something that really sparked myself and all of our games. Really, really found a line that just benefited off each other. We really had a lot of good chemistry out there, so I think that encouraged me and it was a lot of fun playing with those guys. So, but one thing I always wanted to focus on was just kind of shooting percentage. I mean, I know it's something that I've looked at where, you got to get a shot in the off the game or two shots or three shots. It's just something that's so important. And my games I played really well. I had high shooting percentage, and or more shots on net. So just things I think about when I'm out there a little bit. You don't want to think about too often, but to be put in those positions to get a shot on net means you're doing the right things offensively. And this past year I've cashed in on a lot of those shooting opportunities. So that's credit to my line mates Ecker and Greener, but those are something that I just want to keep building on and using. I'm a bigger guy, so I'm not going to be able to move like Kirill or Kevin Fiala out there, but it's something that if you can get a shot or get through a screen, things I've been working on this summer is something I'm really interested in doing more of this year.
Yeah, it just from looking and watching all the games and such, it just seems like you guys had that mentality. After Eck got going, but he had 8 or 9 the year before, and he ends up with 20, and Greenway seemed to have a little bit more confidence, and it just seemed like you guys, as a line, weren't the checking line anymore. I mean, you checked, but you still had that ability, the offensive ability to contribute. And was that something that you guys talked about? Was that something that was encouraged, by the coaching staff that, hey, you guys can do more on the offensive side of the game?
Yeah, I think it really came from, Dino, kind of just Dean Evanson, our coach, believing in us and kind of giving us the, to understand that we can play both sides of the puck. I think there was a little bit of more of don't get scored on when we first started. And it was more like, let's go after these guys. And you could see a lot of net jamming, net front presence and second opportunities where we scored a lot of rebound goals. And I think that the thing too is, I'm not going to say I have a ton of speed, but I think the speed off the rush, and it's for big guys like Ecker can fly and Greener can skate unbelievably, and he's so strong on the puck. So it kind of really, defense were pretty shocked when we were out there with just kind of we had some good entries into the zone, and that's something that you need to do in order to create offense in this league is more possession with the puck. So I think you're right. I think we just had a lot of confidence from our coaching staff where we were able to make that extra pass where maybe, you have a coach that yells at you to get it in. It's just something that we got that confidence going, and we had so much fun in the ozone. I thought we had a lot of good cycling, and instead of just cycling, we eventually took it to the net. And you saw a lot of with Ecker's goals this year. I mean, there was a lot of good spots where he shot it, and we had kind of Greener and myself going to it, or we had a lot of good screens. So we always had that mentality of getting someone to the net, and the other two guys really work hard to puck protect, and it worked out really well for us last season.
Your centerman is a pain in the ass. I got to ask you. I mean, are there times where you start to chuckle a little bit when? Oh
yeah. I think for me, I chuckled most when I think we played LA this year, and Ecker was, I think he had about like 4 or 5 goals against him in like 2 games or 3 games, and I'll never forget it because like Anze Kopitar looked at me. I think it was like middle of the season, but it was like a 4th or 5th game against him, and we weren't together. Our line wasn't together for the first period. And I think we're down like 1-0 going into the second or something. And Dino puts us back together for the second period. And Anze Kopitar looks at me at the start of the second period, face-off dot, and he goes, "Oh no, the band's back together." And he hated it because he hated Eriksson Ek so much because Ecker is just on him. Ecker's so good at getting in guys' skin. He's such a good tight checker. He doesn't give a lot of room. I mean, he's done it against McDavid and players like that the year before, and that's where he started getting his confidence a lot from. But he is just he's on you, and he'll jam the net, and then he'll push you, and I laugh because I'm like, okay, here we go again. I gotta come into the crease here and maybe grab Ecker or grab someone. So it's just one of those things where me and Greener even look at each other because I'll be the whistle will go. I'll be starting to head towards the bench, and I'll look behind me, and there's Ecker in a scrum. So I got to beeline it back to the scrum. So I'm like, come on, can I just get off the ice for once here? So but that's an unbelievable player to have and to play with because he's so intense and he does such a great job with it.
You finally signed Kirill Kaprizov yesterday to a 5-year deal worth $45 million. Herbie11662 asks, any funny Kaprizov stories from last year?
Oh man. I mean, the only one that I can think of, I mean, I don't know if anyone's really heard this story, but he once, when he came to training camp last year, he wanted to, he was practicing with us, and then with COVID rules, we only had to have like allowed 8 or 9 guys on the ice at a time. So Kirill being new, he was kind of bumped down into the second group and not with the veterans and not with, I think it was me, Jared Spurgeon, Zach Breeze, Ryan Suter, the guys that have a couple games under their belt. So he 2, 3, 4 days going like this, and he doesn't really know anyone, and he's talking to Andrew Height, our PR guy, that we call Whitey, and I guess one night Whitey sends out a text message, and because that's what he does every night before in COVID season, he sent out a text message. This was your schedule for the next day, and it shows Kirill back on the B squad. I'll put it that way. So all of a sudden, 20 minutes goes by, 30 minutes go by, and I see a text, and it says Kirill Kaprizov, and it says to the group chat, and I'll put it in nice language, but it says, what the heck? I read his stuff in Russian, but he's like, what the heck? Why am I not with this group? Why am I with bad players?
Yeah.
And I think he meant what he did mean. He meant to text Andrew Height alone.
Yeah.
Texting the whole group chat with all the players on it. So that was his welcome to the team moment, I guess. And I think that was one thing. He'll always check his phone on who he's sending his text messages to. But it didn't come across cocky or mean or anything like that. Just that's who Kirill is, right? He doesn't want to. He wants to be with the guys that he knows he's playing with, and that mentality has taken him and taken our team to the next level because he wants to be the best and he wants to do everything at a high level. And that was just one of the funnier things. The next morning he got pretty razzed about it, and we had a good chuckle the next day at the rink.
I don't know him, never met him. Obviously, with last year we couldn't come around. Just watching him play. And I made a comment the other day on the air about, I don't really think, we all care about the money, right? But in reality, I don't really know. I don't, he comes across like, I just want to play the game. And if my mother's in front of me, I'll knock her down to win. Am I close to being, about him?
He is, I don't want to say this too, where he's not the typical rush. Like he has a team first mentality. He's all about just getting the job done, and I think that's what makes him more special. Amongst other players that have come out of Russia, is just the work ethic aspect. There's no poor me, or there's no you pickpocket him or you take the puck away from him. Well, he's coming right back at you, and he's gonna take that thing back. Like it is unbelievable to watch him when he's on his game because it's so special, and it just rubs off on everyone. It rubs off on our whole team, and when you see your best player with that work ethic every night, it can only do wonders for your squad. So that's the mentality he has. He doesn't come across. He's one of the happiest guys. He'll say hi to you every morning. It's not the Kirill show. He is honestly just team first mentality, and he goes about his business. And the biggest thing I can take from last year was with him. I remember I said, I think he set up someone back door and they missed, and it wasn't that he got mad. He wants to score. He wants to get points because points mean that he's doing his thing. And hey, if he gets points, we're winning on that most occasions. So he wants to score, and when something amazing happens, it's normal for him. So it's always good to have a guy like that in your team.
Marcus, obviously, his talent is pretty clear. His confidence and swagger is pretty clear. Pat and I talked a lot about last year how it almost looked like his confidence permeated throughout the rest of the team. Like there was just all of a sudden the team had a little bit of swagger. Let's face it, this has been a team in the past that has struggled to score at stretches. And it almost seemed like a team that consistently, you guys didn't have any clunkers last year in the regular season. Like it seemed like you guys competed and worked hard most games. And I think a lot of that was the belief of, if we've got this guy on our team, if we're within a goal in the third period, we got a chance to win this thing. Is that accurate? Just from the way we were watching.
Yeah, I think you saw a lot of come from behind wins too last year. I think there was a lot of games where we weren't playing our best, and we down 1, down 2. It didn't matter, and I thought we always had a really good third period. I think our third periods were phenomenal last year. So I think that's right. We always just knew that he could probably get us one if we're right there, and he can make a game kind of break wide open too. So we when you have that confidence and that coming from one player, it rubs off on everyone. But at the same time too, I know what you mean when our team hasn't been that flashy, that style where you have that one guy that can take you over the top, and now we do, and it's also rubbed off offensively on other guys too, where they feel more comfortable, and yeah, we have a lot of threats. I mean, honestly, it's probably one of the hardest working teams in the league. I think our team will be next year, and you add some skill into that, it can be really dangerous. So he definitely has started this big snowball.
Well, that's one of the things that impressed me the most about you guys last year, and it started in game 1 last year, because the first 2 periods against LA in that game, you guys weren't very good, and then you come out in the third, and there was no quit, and it just and from that game on, it just seemed like, okay, these guys don't think they're going to lose, or they think they got a chance to win, and and well, I don't have to tell you, when you have that attitude, you got to, you give yourself a chance every night.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, that was a huge, I think that was a huge game for us to win game 1. I think that kind of just gave us confidence as a group, and the way we did too, with Kirill scoring an overtime winner. It's just something that I think moving into this season is even more solidified as what our team's about, and it's exciting about that, because I just really feel like this year, coming into the season, it's the most ready I've been. I felt a part of a team right now where we're so close, and we understand the structure and the way we have to play, and every guy is on the same page. So that's what's exciting about it, and we definitely learned that last season.
Are you mad at your brother for not joining that team? Are you guys talking? Are you guys okay?
Yeah, we're doing all right.
Take him out this summer, and
we'll find out when we play each other this year. But no, you know what? It was tough to see him go to Boston. It was close. He felt really bad, is what he was always telling me. But I get it. He had to make a tough decision, and he signed. His saying is he signed a 2 year so he can come join me in my 3rd year. So we'll see what happens down the line. But excited for him. But it'll be one day we'll get there. We'll play with each other for sure.
Are you excited to be back in a normal regular season? You'll be playing everybody. You won't be just with the teams that you had last year. How big a difference is that going to be getting ready for that?
Yeah, it's nice already. I mean, just training camp feels pretty normal right now. Having I know guys are vaccinated, and we got a little bit no masks right now, and just walking in, you're able to get your treatment. You're not getting kicked out in a certain time limit. It's nice. It feels normal, and like you said, playing against everyone this year is going to feel great, and get back to that regular season, the 82 game season. So it's I guess guys are already looking forward to the preseason starting and traveling and playing St. Louis and Colorado off the hop and getting familiar with all that. But it'll be nice to go play the East and get out there, and just like you said, it's just there's a lot of great hockey to be played, and when you're playing against that 6-team structure or 8-team structure, whatever it was last year, it got tough, and this will definitely be a little bit more of a better for the mental grind of the season. Final
question for you, Marcus. Before we got on the air, you said, I asked you where you lived. You said Edina, and you said you had a history of playing against Edina from when you were a youth. What's the story against playing the Edina Hornets?
Yeah, so I played up in Hershey, Pennsylvania. My dad was the coach for the Hershey Bears, so we lived in Hershey for 5 years, and the Hershey Junior Bears was a pretty good Pee Wee team when I played, and we played the Silver Stick tournament, and we had a great tournament, and then all of a sudden we kind of noticed this Edina team was making a push for it, and we ended up beating them in the finals, and just something about that team. I mean, we got our butts handed to us in the championship game 4-0, and it could have been worse. And I'll never forget, I was devastated. I think I was crying after the game because we were that close to it, and it would have been awesome for our team. But I realized how good Edina Hornets were, and I always just said, I'm like, oh, I can't stand these.
And now you're
team.
living.
I can't stand that logo. I'll never play for that team. And here I am living in Edina now, and I've also gone. I think when we came to look at houses, and a lot of Edina houses have these sport courts in them. And I walked into like the first house that we saw. We were getting shown it, and there's a sport court, and on the sport court is this massive Edina Hornet logo. And I said, I'm not buying this house. We're out of here. And so, but I'm living in the area code, so there's I'm a Edina Hornet fan, I guess, right now. Who knows? Maybe my girls will go to Edina school or whatever. But it's just crazy how it comes full circle.
Yeah.
If you can't beat them, join them.
Yeah, exactly.
And just so you know, everyone outside of Edina in the state of Minnesota hates Edina hockey. So now
that's what I heard.
I now have to hate you. I just want to let you know that. I liked you before now.
Oh,
Marcus, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you on the ice tomorrow.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, Marcus Foligno, forward for the Minnesota Wild. Before Pat and I chat about a lot going on with the Minnesota Wild, I want to let you know about our sponsor. That would be sodastick.com. Make sure you go to sodastick.com, get your original Minnesota sports inspired goods. If you have not seen the stuff yet, you got to check it out. One of my favorite designs is the North State hat. All of their apparel is screen printed here in Minnesota on super soft, super comfy shirts, so you will love it. And we're going to hook you up with 15% off your next order. So use the code KFAN for 15% off. That's sodastick.com, sotastick.com. Original Minnesota sports inspired goods. Use the code KFAN for 15% off your next order. Pat, we'll chat a little bit, and we'll definitely dig into the comments section as well. That's the beauty of doing a live podcast for those watching right now on all the KFAN social media channels. But I want to get your opinion of we've been talking about it all off season, all summer. Kirill Kaprizov. I think you and I were never really worried that it was going to get done. No. I always assumed the contract would get done. My biggest fear was that the contract would be too short. Fortunately, I don't have that fear anymore. I'm very pleased with 5 years, $45 million.
Well, I think that's where we thought it was going to end up. And you know, the good thing is, you know, we knew it was never going to be about the money. It was always about the term. It was always about getting to free agency as quickly as you can. And you can't blame the agent, you know, at all for that. We've discussed it. You know, the good thing is he signed. Now, you know, listen, we don't know what's going to happen in the next 5 years. And whether he's going to want to re-sign with this team, who knows? They'll worry about that down the road. But, I think what it does is it really makes the organization think about moves that they're going to make. If they really, in these next 2 to 3 years can build a team that, has a chance to win a cup. And, they're going to be tight against the cap. It'll be fun to see how creative Bill Guerin can be.
Obviously, the comments now that he signed the big deal, and now you're the guy and you got the target on the back, is people are wondering, can he handle the pressure, Pat? And I look at a guy who he's been playing professional hockey. I know he's only played 55 games in the NHL, but he was playing professional hockey, a pretty high level of professional hockey in the KHL, and flourishing and succeeding. He scored a game-winning goal in the Olympics. I know it wasn't the best players in the world, but it's still on a high stage and a big stage. And obviously in Russia, that's a lot of pressure there. And I didn't see anything last year in those 55 games. I guess maybe people can look to the playoff performance. But I didn't see anything that said, man, this is a guy that's afraid of the pressure. And in fact, I think he's a guy who embraces it and wants the puck in the biggest moments.
Yeah. And let's work backwards, right? Let's start at the playoffs. I don't care who you are. You need to go through a playoff series because it is completely different than the regular season. We know that. But a young player doesn't until you go through it and understand it's harder. You get checked. You got guys in your face all the time. And you got to learn how to play through it. So we'll go there. Now, the part about the pressure, can he handle it? Of course, he's the highest paid player in the team. He's a superstar. But when I look at him, when I watch him, Brandon, and this is just my own opinion, is that I don't think it bothers him. I think he just loves to play the game. Just by his animation, by his desire out there. I think at the end of the day, get me on the ice, let me play, and I'm happy. And I think so from that perspective, I think he'll be able to handle it.
Yeah, he didn't seem like a guy that got flustered or frustrated too often last season. So Let's talk about his line mates, because let's face it, he was playing with Victor Rask and Matt Zuccarello last year. Now, these are just training camp rosters on day one. You and I know this is going to change a billion times, and we're going to talk about it over and over. And the line combinations are going to change from preseason game to training camp days. But to start, when we had Dean Evison on, if you want to go back and listen to the podcast with him earlier this summer, I asked him about how difficult it is when you have a guy like Joel Eriksson Ek, who's your best center, who you'd want to elevate and maybe get more of a scoring role, but also don't want to break him up with Greenway and Foligno, given the chemistry between those three, as Marcus clearly laid out when he was on with us. At least to start tomorrow, Joel Eriksson Ek is in the same group as Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Zuccarello, which would lead you to believe that at least he's going to get that shot with those two to begin with.
Well, I think they're going to, I think it'll change on a daily basis. I really do. He mentioned the fact of playing Gaudreau with Fiala, because they played together in Milwaukee. And, that may be a combination that, we see quite a bit together. They're in the same group tomorrow. They'll probably be together. But, ultimately, listen, one area they I guess you can say they addressed it with a Gaudreau, but excuse me, he wasn't the high ender, right?
Yeah.
But the way that Dean operates, he looks for fits. He looks for guys that can work well together, and look no further than we can. Again, I don't want to go through the year being a Rask apologist, because I think at the end of the day, Rask is going to end up with Zuccarello and Kaprizov, at least for part of the time. I don't know how long. I guess it will all depend on how the team is going and how they play. But you know what? It would be interesting to ask Kaprizov what he wants. Who did he enjoy playing with Victor Rask and Matt Zuccarello? It's it as long as they win, it really doesn't matter, and we'll just have to see how it plays out.
Well, let's face it, Pat, there was a lot of complaining and whining about who he was playing with last year. But the point I made last year is there's not really a lot of great options, right? I mean, Joel Eriksson Ek's your best center, but he looked so good with that line. Why would you break that line up? And Victor Rask, I thought, was okay in the spot he was. And at least he seemed to have a little bit of chemistry with Kirill Kaprizov, which brings me to the next spot. I don't know how much you saw of the prospect scrimmages. I saw one of their practices. I saw the first Friday night scrimmage. I saw moments of the Sunday scrimmage, but I was working the Vikings game, and obviously I saw the replay of the Rossi tying goal highlight. But Anthony Oberstar, wrong one there, says, do both Boldy and Rossi make the roster?
I hum and ha with this one. I think that Minnesota is in a position to send them down and give them more time. They have enough players without those two making the roster. They have Duhaime, Dewar, that I think they could, that they might take a look at. They played a lot of minutes in Iowa last year. I listen, if they blow them away in camp, I think both will stick. If they feel that they need a little bit more time, they'll send them down. Do I believe by mid-season, worst case scenario, I think both will be in the lineup.
Let's talk about Boldy first. I remember seeing him. God, I don't even recall anymore with all the COVID years we've had now. When the last Wilds prospects camp was,
right?
But, I think it might have been the year Boldy was drafted. I remember going to Churia rink and seeing him out there, and to me, the difference between then and now is just his frame. I mean, he went from being kind of a little skinny, and obviously he was tall and not the fleetest of foot for his size. I mean, he's fleet of foot for his size, but in comparatively speaking to the rest of the league, because he is that big, he's not the fastest or quickest guy. More probably quick than fast in the world. But he just looks like he's gone from being a boy to a man. I mean, he's got some muscle to him. He's got a frame, and out of the two of them, me, I got a man crush on Marco Rossi, but I think they are definitely leaving a spot open for Matt Boldy on that line with Fiala. I'd be surprised if he doesn't grab that spot at this point.
Well, here's the deal on Boldy. He's got to be at the worst in your top 9. You can't play him on the 4th line. If you're going to play him on the 4th line, send him down. And Brandon, he went to Boston College his 2nd year after having a really tough freshman year, and he was their best player or one of their best players. He was one of the best players in the junior tournament. He signs with the Wild. He goes down to Iowa, and he's one of their best players there. He comes to prospect camp. And according to everyone I've talked to and seeing what little I did, he was a standout in the prospects camp. So every time he's right there, he's doing what he's supposed to do. And so they're probably, I'm sure they're probably thinking, this kid, all he does is impress. And, I think you're right. I think if he shows again in training camp with the big guys what he's capable of, he has a good chance to make it.
Yeah, to me, it was clear both of them are, and obviously I had my eyeballs on those two compared to most of the other prospects. Yep. So sometimes you get a little bias just kind of zoning in on those two. But to me, it was clear they were a step ahead than the rest of the prospects. Right. And even the rest of the prospects have improved quite a bit from where we used to be from a depth standpoint. Even, I liked Adam Beckman. I thought he looked pretty good. Mostly against Chicago, the 2 scrimmages, and this is a very small sample size against prospects, against 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds. I get it. They're not professional players. But the power play to me is what stood out. I mean, we saw Boldy in the World Juniors. You saw him at Boston College more than I did, but he's clearly a guy who can play in front of the net or play down low on the goal line in the power play. And Rossi in that spot, kind of on the half wall, which is where Kaprizov is playing. Yeah. Man, he gets a little bit of an open there. He can shoot, but you can tell Rossi wasn't completely 100% there. He was still kind of losing pucks at times overall. I thought that's just a guy who hasn't played a lot of hockey over the last year and change, but his edge work, I'm not going to say he's Kaprizov edges, but he's the next best on his edges probably in the organization at this point in terms of moving in small little areas. He thinks the game. He makes really great creative passes. The question for him is going to be strength wise, size wise, can he handle bigger, stronger men?
Right.
And but he might not get there immediately.
Right.
But he's going to get there in the next year or two.
Yeah, and he's determined.
Yes.
I came here to play in
and
the
confident.
Yeah, and confident. So you know what? I'm okay if he's down for a little bit. They have enough. The guy I'm really anxious to see if he takes that next step is Marco Sturm, because at times
Nico.
I'm sorry, I keep thinking of his not even his father, right? Yeah. But Nico at times really, he showed something, and can he take his game to the next level? He's going to have to, right? I mean, he's going to, if they're going to get to where they want to be, he's got to take a step this year. And I'm looking. It's really going to be interesting to watch his team early on.
I'm glad you bring his name up, because if you are going to move Eriksson Ek up, and at least to start off, it looks like Ryan Hartman is going to center Greenway and Foligno on that line. But I've always kind of looked at Sturm as kind of a potential Joel Eriksson Ek light, right?
Yeah, right.
Don't know if he's going to take the offensive step that Joel Eriksson Ek has, but like he's got the size, the skating, the strength. I don't know if he has the face-off ability, but he has a lot of characteristics. Like he can play a defensive game, that he can be a third-line center and kind of play a straight-line game, like Greenway and Foligno can. And they've kind of moved him back and forth from wing to center and gave him a little bit more of a run at center last year. So when I saw Eriksson Ek, that's kind of a guy that I think, hey, he could play with Foligno and Greenway. Yeah, potentially.
It'll be interesting with Gaudreau, right? I remember seeing him back when he was with Milwaukee, but I can't remember, much about him. I'm anxious to see what he brings. It's always Dean had him in Milwaukee, so he knows what he's getting. He knows how he's going to use them. I think he hopes that he has taken a step in his game where he can provide little offense. It'll be, those are some of the guys that I'm really going to keep an eye on in camp.
David Zalazar asks, real question is, how does the Wild overcome the Parise Suter cap hit for another few years? Is there anything we can learn from the other teams stuck with cap hits after the 10-year contracts ending?
It is what it is. They know the money that they have to play with. It's not going to be a lot. I doubt the cap is going to go up a lot. But here's the deal. A lot of people are shocked, surprised that they got rid of both of them. But they went through every scenario possible about buying one out, buying neither of them out, buying both of them out, how much money they have, who's under contract, who's coming up, in need of a new contract. They just didn't fly by night this thing. So I think they have a pretty good idea. Now, is that gonna hurt them in going after a high price free agent? Maybe so. But we don't know. There's guys that are potentially tradable on this team that carry a big contract. Is that going to happen? The main thing, and we got to look at it from this standpoint. Who are their core players now? Kaprizov, Fiala. Yes, you have to re-sign him next year. Ek, Foligno, Brodin, Spurgeon. Guys like that are your core. And then you've got to build around them, to make yourself a contender.
I don't know how to say this person's name, but it says, if Rossi and Eriksson Ek are centering the top two lines, does Rask move to 3 or scratch him and have Hartman Goudreau as your 3-4 centers? I'm not convinced Rossi is going to start off as the number 2 center, but if you just look at the way they're setting up the groups tomorrow, Pat, right? So you've got Eriksson Ek, Kaprizov, and Zuccarello together. You have Hartman, Greenway, Foligno together. And then it looks like they put all the other potential forwards in the other group. So it's hard to determine what line they're thinking of who. But, they've got Rask, Fiala, Goudreau, Sturm, Bjugstad, Kyle Rao, who might make the team, Boldy and Rossi, all in that same group. So it's kind of hard. Obviously, I think Fiala is going to make the team. I like his chances there, and he'll be on a scoring line. But as for who's playing with him, he could be playing with all those guys throughout camp.
Right. And then you got guys that play different positions. You got Bjugstad, right? He can play center, he can play wing. You got Sturm, who can play center or wing. Hartman, although he's in the other group, but there's a guy that you can move around. You can play him anywhere. You can play him on the left side, play him on the right side. He just plays, right? That'll be the fun part of, and we'll probably see a lot of movement early, getting guys in the right spot, and if Rask could certainly end up on that fourth line. Who knows? We'll just have to watch and see what happens.
Kind of a topic that has gone under the radar a little bit this summer, and Kevin brings it up, is how good or bad do you guys think the defense will be this year? Obviously, a lot of changes there with Suter gone, Susie gone, Ian Cole gone. You've got your main 3. You added Alex Goligoski. After that, you kind of have some question marks.
I'm not worried about Goligoski fitting into that top 4. He'll play with Spurgeon, probably Dumba and Brodin. They did get some size in Merrill, Kulikov, and Ben. All 3 can't play. Your 5 and 6 are certainly different than a year ago, but but that doesn't mean they're worse, right? And does Addison fit into the mix somehow with one of those guys? They're going to have to make some decisions there, and that's what camp's all about. But yeah, it's going to be different. But those guys are veterans too. They've been around the league for a long time, and and that experience is going to help. They're not going to wow you, but as long as they, keep the puck out of the net, that's their job.
Obviously, your core three guys that are coming back, I think we all have confidence in: Spurgeon, Brodin, and Dumba. Goligoski, I like Suter. I thought he was still playing at a somewhat high level last year, even though he's maybe dropped a little bit in the last couple of years. But I think Goligoski might bring you a little bit more offense and a little bit more on the power play than Suter can. I think the interesting part here is you have, three guys with one-way contracts that are kind of playing for your third pairing, which kind of leaves Kalen Addison to me out.
Yeah,
I think, but I actually like it better this way with Addison. In last year, Addison would kind of move into the third line and wouldn't really do power play and wasn't out there in offensive situations. I think he's kind of your replacement for one of your top four now, right? I mean, if you have an injury to one of your guys in top four, which at some point you will, that, those guys on your third pairing probably aren't necessarily, maybe Kulikov, given he was once, highly acclaimed and drafted relatively highly.
Yeah.
But, I think Addison's now going to be in a position where he's not just moving into your third pairing. If a guy in the top four is out, he'll go straight into that role and kind of give him a chance to play some minutes and play some offensive minutes.
I agree 100%. And listen, he showed he can play in the league. He did. He was not out of place. Just sometimes you run into a situation where you got some pretty good guys in front of you. But it's also nice from an organizational standpoint where you can call him up and insert him in a top four role, and he can be just fine. We saw that every time he got called up.
All right. Fours wants to know, what are your top three bold predictions in terms of the team this year? And do we have some Calder potential? Pat, I would need some time to think bold predictions. I don't know if I can come up with that right on the spot. As for Calder potential, I mean, obviously you're going to have some guys here that'll be rookies in Rossi and Boldy. I don't know if I see Boldy exploding to the point where he's getting Calder winning, putting those types of stats up. I guess Rossi, if he was thrown into a first line center role, or if he somehow made the team and was playing with Kaprizov, sure, you're going to put up a lot of numbers regardless of who you are. But it's also hard to look at some of the other rookies out. I mean, with the way Cole Caulfield played, in the playoffs last year and at the end of the regular season, it'd be hard to believe that one of our two guys is going to have that type of offensive performance from what I'm expecting out of him this year.
Well, here's my bold prediction. And I think I've gone with this. I don't think this team is ready to win a Stanley Cup. I do like this team. I think this team will make the playoffs. I think they will take a step back in terms of their overall performance. But here's what I like. I like their attitude. I like their coaching staff. I like the belief in one another that they have, that they feel they can win. They have guys that can win games for you in Fiala and Kaprizov. When you bring in new guys and younger guys, it's going to take them time. And I'm talking about Boldy. I'm talking about Rossi. But ultimately, do I think this team will be better than what they put on the ice a year ago? Yes, but it's going to take some time. It should be another really good year.
One non-Minnesota Wild topic before we go, Pat. The CCHA had their media day yesterday. Their preseason poll came out. Not a surprise, the Minnesota State Mankato picked as the preseason favorites in the CCHA. 67 of 70 votes, including 5 first-place votes. I know that doesn't surprise you.
Not at all. They've got a lot of guys back. They have the best goalie in the country back. They might have the best forward in the country in Nathan Smith, who's a preseason MVP. When you have experience and what they've done and getting a taste of where they got to last year, they're going to be awfully good. And in fact, Brandon, I think this year in college hockey is going to be one of the most competitive that we've seen in the last 10, 15 years, with the number of guys coming back due to COVID and getting that extra year of eligibility, the transfer portal. Look at the teams in the state, and I'm going to leave St. Thomas out of it because It's their first year. But every team in the state, again, has a very, very good chance of making the NCAA tournament.
Well, and as you mentioned, a lot of these teams have fifth-year seniors that are able to have eligibility again because of the COVID situation. And I was watching Tom Saratori's head coach of Bemidji State meeting with the media yesterday as part of his Zoom conference call, and he was asked about, man, it must be great to have these experienced guys coming back. That must make you feel good. And he goes, well, yeah, it makes me feel good, but every team's got that. Every team,
right?
Every team is returning all these fifth-year seniors, so it's not like I have some sort of built-in advantage over all these other teams.
Right,
but it's going to make for good college hockey.
Well, it is, Brandon, and typically, you're all excited about getting freshmen and oh, this guy's highly touted, but we know that it takes time for freshmen. Whenever you make a jump to another league, I don't care if it's mites to squirts to and bantams and so on, it takes you time, and your team has to kind of wait for you to get there. This year, from the get-go, with the experience that all these teams have, it's going to be great right from the beginning.
One final note, I saw that Alex Stalock, former Minnesota Wild goaltender, now Edmonton Oilers goaltender, looks like he might miss the season due to heart conditions. Obviously, he had COVID COVID last November, myocarditis. He had some issues to begin the season, never really played last year, and it looks like he might miss again this year. So even a young, finely tuned athlete still getting affected by COVID. So
unbelievable. What a great guy. And, I hope it's not the end of his career, but if it is, what a great career, national championship at UMD, just a great teammate here in Minnesota, and really played well for this organization, did what they asked. Players loved him, coaches loved him, management loved him. The fans loved him and still do. So we wish him nothing but to get back to some good health.
Pat, as always, appreciate your time and appreciate everyone who watched through this entire broadcast with us. We really appreciate it. He's Pat Micheletti. I'm Brandon Mileski. Thank you so much for watching tonight on all the KFAN social media channels. If you are listening to this podcast later on, you can go back and watch all of our podcasts on the KFAN YouTube channel. You can also listen to any of these podcasts wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much for watching tonight. Really appreciate it. This has been another episode of Beyond the Pod. We'll talk to you next week.